you transition into the 5th fret, play it open, and accent it, cap it off at the end with your pinky finger on the bottom string 8th fret. Okay, so going back from that main verse riff, he's like, 11 this morning I do. Does it twice. That's the second time. And then after he's done with that, he goes back into the introductionary riff. Okay, so we're gonna go and talk about this kind of semi-introductionary riff. It's like a half of it. So we're gonna talk about that here shortly. Okay, so we went over this. And now he goes into this number. Okay, so what he's doing here, okay, is he's going again to the 6th and 5th string on the 3rd fret. He plays those strings bending down, then open, then back again to the same spot, 6th and 5th string, 3rd fret, then open, and then you ring out on the 5th fret bottom string with your slide. And after you ring here, you set up yourself rhythmically, and in timing you hit your guitar with just your 3 fingers here, and then you do that once, and then you play 2 downstrokes. So all together it looks like this. So 1, 2. Wait, let me do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when you put that all together, you want to compress it so that it works in timing. So that's I would think that would be pretty easy to play. Once again, it's 8 parts, and that part alone might take you a little while, but fairly simple. You know, and once again, it's about recycling those licks on the 3rd fret and 5th fret and such forth. Okay. So we've talked about that, and now we're going to talk about the D chord and his turnaround, the kind of ending of the whole, you know, the back to the coda is when he starts to go and sing the verse again. So we're going to talk about the turnaround here shortly. Okay, so we talked about the 4 chord here. Into the 7th fret and he does the same number that you did on the 5th fret with the 8th fret accentation. He does it on the 7th fret, and he goes, I walked up right close, and then he goes to the 5th fret, and I made you judgment day. And then he goes to that riff you just played. So it's pretty simple. Once again, you're rushing into that. You're going from the 4th fret to the 7th fret. Your index finger has barred the entire 7th fret, and with your free pinky you accent the 10th fret bottom string. And then you go back to the 5th fret and back to the 5th fret and then back to that riff. So I also like to talk about the way that Sun does those, the way that he performs those kinds of chords. I've noticed that those are the most powerful forms of expression that he utilizes in the song. So it's like this, this vigorous force that you want to use in playing that. So when he's jumping, he's really giving it a very high accent. The dynamics are very intense, and that's what you want to utilize in your playing. So, I walked up right close, yeah, I walked away. So when you punch into that 7th fret, it's like you're breaking through the door, you're breaking through the window. And these techniques that I'm talking about, these full bars on the 5th and 7th fret, is something that you'll hear in a lot of other of his songs. He recycles this melody, and it's also a main breakdown of playing the blues in this particular tuning, G tuning. That's ultimately what all of the blues players would do. Robert Johnson would utilize this, like in Stones in My Pathway. I got stones in my pathway, and my road seemed dark as night. I got pain in my heart. So you hear it in all of this kind of blues music, and you should be able to pick it up by ear as you listen to other Son House's songs. Like in Levy Can't Moan, he plays this riff. I got a job on the levee. So you hear it over and over again, and it's something that you can get down pretty simple. So I'm not going to waste any more time with that. Okay, so now we're going to go to the ending of the song, the riff, the ending riff. So we get down to that. Okay, so leaving up where we last picked off, we did the thing on the 7th fret. I walked up right close, and I looked her in the face. So once again, you're going back to that riff that we discussed, and that's the 6th and 5th string on the 3rd fret. You play that, open, play it again, open, ring on the 5th fret bottom string, damp the guitar, that's the 6th step, and 2 downstrokes of the open chord. Okay, and that's the majority of the entire song. That's the whole song, and if you put them all together in those parts, you'll be able to play it with fluidity. And though they're kind of intricate in their own little sections and parts, and timing is sometimes hard to grasp off the bat, you'll find that it will all come together and make sense as you practice it. And it's just about gathering the momentum and feeling the rhythm in your hands, dictating the tempo and the motion by how you play those particular licks. And it's almost like your arm, your right arm, is orchestrating the tempo, and you have to create this balance of the tempo, this balance of patience, and how do you play those particular licks. So after he plays this ending riff, he goes back to that main riff. So here, I'm going to play it like this. Well, I packed up my suitcase down the road. I got there, she was that transitionary piece that he goes into the verse, he once again plays open. I walked up right close. He plays that a little short segment of open, soft downstrokes of the open chord. So after the ending riff, well, I walked up right close. Let me get that again. So when I said, well, I have played two downstrokes of the open G chord. Well, I put on my suitcase, took it down the road. When I got there, she was laying. So you restart the cycle over again, and he repeats the whole thing. The whole song is just a repeat of all of those stages. There's no special breaks that you need to learn, no other techniques. It's basically the recycling of those riffs. And if you learn every section perfectly, put it all together, you can play the song with good fluidity. So I think I've covered everything. I'm going to kind of go over some difficult parts again and kind of discuss other techniques in his other versions of the song. So let's start it off from the beginning and take it from there. We're going to play it slow. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take it a little bit slow. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the song in its entirety, and then you repeat the cycles as you go. So I guess one thing I forgot to mention is that when I play into that 5th and 7th fret transition, Somewhere in that transition, I play 2 downstrokes of the open string. And if you could rewind while I'm playing the whole song, you'll notice that. I forgot to mention that in the clip. So I'll play it right here. So it's like, I took it on the road, down I got the shoes of him. So before I go into that 7th fret, I play those 2 open strums. But I do that anyhow because that's the construction of that famous riff when you utilize the... You play that before you go into the 7th fret. So fairly simple. Now if there are any things that I can help you to give the song more dynamic, these riffs, when he's playing in the main verse, you can also try to play the top string, play the open strings on the 2nd fret, 2nd string. You could play that whole stretch. Even though it's kind of muffled, a more fuller and richer sound in that. Okay, so that's one technique that I could give you. Now I play this song with my right hand. It kind of is really how you want to play it. You know, Son played it he played a very strange technique of his right hand where he would like kind of dampen and pinch the strings upward and have like this kind of motion with his hand, like you'll see it in the YouTube video, but he takes his free fingers, not his thumb, and when he's playing this 3rd fret, he's pulling up towards himself. And sometimes he'll hit the guitar when he's on the 5th and 6th fret, and then he'll play the open chord with the 2nd hit. So that this chord, that 1-2 combination, 1-2, he also utilizes this hit for both of those notes. So 1-2, and then he right away goes back up. That's something that you can flirt around with, is that hitting motion, and he does that in his music. And he also does that on the 5th fret. So that's a very Son House kind of technique. On the right hand is this pinching motion, which is very it's very loose. It's a very wild technique. That's very, it's untamed, and his hand is free to play the strings in a very more comfortable setting. So that's one technique that Son uses. Hitting, you can do that motion. You can mess around with it on the various licks about the song, but it's something that you can use to your advantage. So for the primary purpose of learning this song, I suggested that you do just keep it on downstrokes with your thumb. But if you feel comfortable of messing around with hitting, as something that it will come into place as you practice. I also utilize a technique where I pinch, where I flick my three fingers here. When I flick downward, so when I play the first riff, I flick on the open strings. I found that to be kind of useful in trying to play his songs. It's something that maybe you want to play around with. So hitting the guitar and these kind of downward flicks, like you're flicking water out of your hands, is good to incorporate in the music. And you also need to use your feet. Tap your feet. Use a metronome. If you need to use a metronome, or dictate the tempo of the song with the kind of steady tapping of your feet, so that you can be in a timing. So that's the majority, the breakdown of that particular version that he played on YouTube. Now, that's all you gotta know, is that you're working with the 3rd fret, the top 4 string on the 3rd fret, the 5th fret with the accent on the 8th fret bottom string, 7th fret with the accent on the bottom string, and open chords. And that's the 4 disciplines of the song. Very easy, and once you get it, you won't stop playing it. So now I'm going to talk about his other versions of songs that you'll hear, and how they differ from this one. Okay, so on the LP version, he does something pretty different in the opening riff, and it's very complicated, and it's not a very consistent with timing. But in the famous LP song, the side that you'll find in any download that he produced in the studio, he plays the opening riff like this. Gets a little bit tricky, but that opening riff, he goes, he incorporates this into that melody, so it gets a little bit tricky when you try to play that particular version. It's not very neat and easy like the version that I'm teaching you here, but it's something to kind of notice the differences between those songs. So so when he plays that main riff, like what we were learning earlier, in this regular version, he does it twice. So he goes, notice the difference. He does it 2 times instead of once. So it gets a little bit tricky on that sense. So that's the main differences on this version compared to the official version. And it's not very fun to play like that, so you want to keep it simple. So that is, in essence, the song in general. I've broken it down into segments, study each segment and try to get a good grasp for it. And if there's any other questions, if you need any supplemental help, just let me know what section, and you'll be okay. If you want to play along with Son House, I take the capo, put it over the 2nd fret, and so it doesn't hurt to play along with Son on the LP. Now that you know how to play what he's playing, it should be no problem, so you can dictate the pace. And like I said, it's been a pleasure teaching you this version of Son House's Death Letter Blues. And good luck, and if there's any other Son House numbers that you want to learn, first you should try to pick it up by ear from what you've learned in this song. So now you know the kind of disciplines in this breakdown, and it should help you discover how to pick out the music as you listen on to his other LPs. So my name is Delta Lou, and I'm signing off at this point. Good luck and Godspeed.